Hello, welcome to day 3, our last day of this training series. Today we're going to talk about burnout and ways we can beat the burnout, or bounce back from the burnout, or maybe even avoid it altogether. Spend basically less time spinning in circles, doing shit that we hate, or even doing shit that isn't going to move the needle at all. Now, I'm a huge proponent of doing things that feel good. Like, I love to lay around in bed and scroll social media and watch my favorite shows and eat snacks. And I consider all of those things core business practices. So I don't consider those things a waste of time when I'm doing them, right? Because I allow myself that space. I allow myself to do those things because I also consider them part of my business and how I do business. So when I say spending less time doing things we hate, or choosing to do things that move the needle, I mean that in a sense of bringing more awareness to how we look at the things we do in our business, how we feel about the things we do in our business, and, kind of gathering up that energy that might be leaking out through certain things that maybe are unnecessary, or maybe no matter what type of pleasure sandwiching we do, we just can never get ourselves to enjoy it. Therefore, it takes us 5 times longer to do. There's just all different ways of looking at this. So just keep that in mind as we go through. Okay? Okay. Let's talk about energy leaks. So remember on day 1, when we talked about working from overflow versus depletion, working from a depleted state all the time is going to leave you feeling burned the fuck out. And there's almost no way around that. If we're not checking back in with ourselves and asking ourselves okay, how does this actually sit in my body? What's going through my mind when I'm doing these things? Am I making myself wrong? Am I making this really complicated? Is there a way I can make this even easier, right? So bringing awareness to the things that really drain us and figuring out a way that we can make it feel better. Maybe we can delegate it. Maybe we can drop it altogether. There's a lot of things in my business that I just dropped altogether because I was like, okay, this actually, I don't like it and it doesn't have to be for me. So ask yourself, what types of things are energy leaks? Look at your business, look at your day-to-day life, look at the things that are depleting you and leaving you feeling exhausted or overwhelmed or burnt out, right? And then think about the things that are really filling your creative cup, making you feel good, things that you really enjoy, things that might even be considered work, but when you're done with them, you feel light and you feel full of whatever you want to call it, like good energy, excitement, joy, fulfillment, whatever those adjectives are, right? What types of things that you're doing, whether business related or not, it could be anything in your life that are leaving you feeling good afterward. And then really taking a look at these 2 lists and figuring out how you can maybe do a little bit more of the things that fill you up and a little less of the things that leak you or deplete you. Right? Or maybe even we can look at things that deplete us and be like, okay, is there anything on this list that I can do differently that might give me a different outcome? And a lot of times that's simplifying, but that's a whole topic for another day. What can I start saying no to? So you have that list. What of those things can you just stop doing or do less of or do differently, right? Where can you set a boundary? Where can you set a boundary there? What comes up for you when you talk about boundaries, when you think about it, about boundaries, when you want to implement them or think that you should? Do you immediately talk yourself out of it? Do you tell yourself you're not worthy of that boundary or that desire? Do you tell yourself people are going to be mad at me? People are going to be disappointed? So take a look at all those things. Those are all the things we want to bring awareness to. And then as far as boundaries go, right, I'm going to give you just a brief little rundown of my experience with boundaries and why I include talking about them so much in a lot of my programs. Because they're really hard, but really, really worth it when implemented, right? So give you a little story time. In 2019, I committed to myself and made my desires, which also meant my boundaries, my top priority. I did not work outside of my scheduled business hours. I did not pick up extra days. I hired a virtual assistant. I went on a 2-week vacation that I paid cash for. I raised my prices, and I lost more clients than I'd ever lost in all the years prior combined. Okay, so this was when I was not doing coaching yet. I was still daydreaming of the day I would be doing coaching. But at this time, I was in my hair studio. So I had a solo hair studio. And I realized I needed to make some changes. So these are the changes that I made, right? This was when I was mostly just doing hair. And I remember telling myself, okay, Elizabeth, like, it's all good. I know I'm going to make less money, but it's fine because I'm happier, I'm healthier, things are good. Like, they'll pick up again. Well, your bitch fucking made $25K more that year than I did the year before. And I had a schedule full of soul clients. I had less clients, but I had the right kinds of clients. And then I was mind blown. I know, mind blown. Sometimes I'm like, damn, I'll talk my own self out of that brag, right? I'll be like, oh, 25K, that's like nothing to some people. I'm like, who the hell cares? That was huge for me. And not that we always need that kind of evidence, but it was like, bam, evidence, like right in front of my face, the numbers, evidence that what I did was good, right? It was like, oh my gosh, I can do this. And then in 2020, so in last year, I was able to make the same amount of money. So I made the same income, even though my main source of income, my hair business, was shut down for 8 months out of 2020. Yes, that was when I added coaching in. And because I was not doing hair because we were shut down, I was able to devote the time to build my coaching business. But nonetheless, I was able to do that in a way that got me those results quicker, that like helped me reframe the mindset stuff quicker in a way that like really supported me, the human, me, Elizabeth, the person. And that's how I was able to get those quantum leaps so quickly, right? It didn't feel quick. I'll fully admit it felt like a long time because it's like, very personal putting your work out there for people. But nonetheless, my whole point is just seeing that evidence time and time again that these boundaries worked and they're worth it. And I'm happier and I'm healthier and I'm making more money. It's just one of those things that is good to acknowledge and look at. So I continue to find the need to set boundaries as I go and as I expand. And as my mindset work deepens, my desires shift and my life changes, but it does get easier and I do get clearer with them all the time. I feel like I've gotten so clear on these boundaries that part of the easierness of implementing them is coming from that place of knowing and trusting myself, right? Because I am very clear. So with that kind of comes the art of saying no. And this is what I kind of call my custom framework, even though it's not really a framework. It's more just like things to think about when you want to say no, right? Start believing that you're worthy of everything you desire, and everything you desire that includes the things that you desire not to do, right? Like, okay, I desire to not do blah, blah, blah anymore because that shit fucking depletes me. Perfect. So it's the same as I desire to do X because it fills me up, right? It's the same. They're both just as important. Bring awareness to how you feel and what your self-talk is like before, during, and after certain tasks or interactions. Really, really pay attention to how you're feeling after you interact with certain people or certain mentors or take certain courses, right? These all start to add up, and we are allowed to say no to the things, to the people, to the places that just don't align for us. And it's okay if it aligns for like literally a million other people. This is the story of my life. Okay, even if it aligns for 100 million other people, it's okay if it doesn't for you. It's totally okay. All right. And then don't make yourself wrong. Oh God, there's something wrong with me. I'm not like everyone else, blah. It's like, no, bitch, you're not like everyone else because you're like you. And that is fucking special. Okay. You don't have to be like everybody else. For sure not. So use the power of the pause to help keep you grounded. Essentially, the power of the pause is literally just taking a moment, taking a little breath after, right before you implement a boundary. So the example I give here is one that came up a lot for me with hair, but you can apply it to whatever. When a client asks to come in on a Saturday, when you do not work Saturdays, right? Ooh, edgy. Take a moment, take a breath, remember what your answer is, and then confidently answer with little explanation. I'm actually not working Saturdays right now, but I do have this day and time available for you. Does that work? Because we don't have to over-explain. We don't have to feel bad. It's just an answer to their question. Okay? And this is how we get those right people coming to us, because the right people aren't going to sit there and tell us, you don't work Saturdays. Like, what kind of lazy hairstylist doesn't work Saturdays? Like, I don't know. Who knows what people will say? That is not your person. Okay? Your person is the one that will say, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Okay, cool. Like, great. Let's do, that day is fine. Or do you have something at this time? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, perfectly fine. Everything's cool. I know we get like sweaty armpits when we feel like we're going to disappoint someone, but this is all part of setting and implementing the boundaries and creating that business that we really love. Okay, so get very clear on your goals and your desires, and then double down on your self-trust. All right, if you need to go back to yesterday's topic of clarity and biz goals, go ahead and do that, because I do talk about that in yesterday's video. And if you haven't watched it yet, that's okay too. There's plenty of time. So this can also lead into your strategy and your business methods, right? So do you hate doing certain things in your business? Are your processes maybe non-existent? So it takes you 5 times longer to like get something done because you don't have anything streamlined, or maybe it's like an overly complicated streamlined process where it takes the customer through like 10 different steps that maybe aren't necessary, right? So it's just taking a look at what you're doing, why you're doing it, and if it's even necessary. Like, do you need a 10-step onboarding process? Do you need to have X, Y, or Z? Like, these are the things we can look at now with like an open mind, and that, again, rooted down in that self-trust of I can make decisions for myself and this business, and it doesn't have to look like anyone else's business. It just has to make sense for me and the people I'm calling in. All right. So moving forward, I'll talk a little bit about simple strategies and working with a little more efficiency, right? Like sometimes we get so caught up in, this thing I learned, this blah, blah, blah process, I must do that because that's the thing. Like that is how I learned how to do onboarding. That's how I learned how to do scheduling. That's how I learned how to do billing, whatever. And it's being able to come back and look at all these things, like if it's a point of disruption for us, and just ask ourselves, like, can this be easier, right? So then we can spend less time implementing like some crazy thing, and or less time deciding what to do and more time just taking that quick action, right? Like for me and my onboarding system, like I don't have like some fancy thing that takes them through all these things. Like I have an email that I copy and paste. I change the name. I change some of the wording. I have contracts that I copy and paste, change the name, change the wording. And that's my process, right? Like I do have an online business manager now who may do things a little differently because now it makes sense to do that. But when it was just me, that's what made sense. And that was the easiest thing for me, right? I didn't want another thing to manage. I didn't want another thing to pay for. I wanted to keep it simple. But I also knew that if I didn't stay on top of, making sure I had the copies of the emails and the copies of the contracts like saved in a folder, that then when I went to do it next, I'd be like totally discombobulated because I wouldn't remember where it was, and it would become this thing, and like, blah, my ADHD brain would kick into gear, right? So I try to avoid those types of things by simplifying things down as much as possible. Okay, so again, ask yourself, how can I make this easier? How can I shift something so that I can show up with more energy? Because if we're spending all this time and all this energy trying to figure out these kinks behind the scenes, are we actually even showing up for our business, in our business? Right? Sometimes we're like, oh my gosh, like, no, I'm really not. Like, as much as the back end stuff is important, the front end stuff is also important, right? And we want to be able to do the things we want to do and say them in the ways we want to say them so that we can bring in the right types of people for us. And we can't always do that if we're depleted. So also ask yourself, what do I keep putting off? Why do I keep putting this off? Can I drop this completely? Or am I just like having a moment and being like so cute by pushing this to the very bitter end of like the timeline to get it done? I do that. I'm a cute little procrastinator. I talked about this very recently in my social media that, you know, I don't make myself wrong when I make things the day before they're due. It just is what it is. I've been like this my entire life. It's driven people around me crazy. So I had learned to hate that about myself and think it was bad. But the more I fought it, the harder it became to deal with. So I finally just thought, fuck it. I am a procrastinator. I'm like a little bit lazy procrastinator, which means like I would rather lay around to the last possible second. And then I'm like, oh, woo, okay, here we go. It's go time. La, and I get it done. And I work really well doing it that way. Okay. Like it doesn't stress me out because I tell myself it's okay that I'm doing it like this. It doesn't matter if it gets done today or if it got done 2 weeks ago, as long as it gets done. So just giving you some examples. Okay. Some real life examples there. And, really what this all comes down to, like I keep saying, is that self-trust and letting yourself know that everything you're doing is enough. Okay. Living in that space of everything I'm doing is enough. Everything I did today was enough. Even if you did nothing, that's okay. We're allowed to do nothing. We're allowed to do nothing sometimes. I do nothing a lot. I do nothing a lot. And I do stuff a lot, you know, it just is what it is. And some days I do a lot of nothing and some days I do a lot of stuff and whatever. It's totally fine. This is the basis of pleasure-based business, making yourself right. Because of course, there are always more things that can be done and more ways to be better or to improve upon. But when we focus our energy on those things and we only look at what we're lacking, not only do we feel shitty, but we really start to deplete ourselves of our most basic human needs, which I think are happiness and trust and love, right? We start digging away at that self-love, self-trust, self-happiness bit where it's like, am I really even having fun or am I just stressed the fuck out all the time? It's important to notice, right? And so if I were to say there was a secret to success, I think it's wild self-acceptance. Allowing ourselves to be whole, full humans, embracing those funny things about ourselves, those bad things about ourselves, the things that people tell us are no bueno, right? And just trusting that we can handle anything that comes up along the way, right? A lot of people are really scared of fucking up. Well, guess what? You're going to fuck up. Shit's going to happen. We're going to cause harm. We're going to do and say things, and then we're going to learn, and then we're going to clean it up, and we're going to do better moving forward. And that is how business should be handled. That's how life should be handled. It's no big deal. People are not going to mind. It's going to be fine. They're going to really being able to model that as the way to do things, the way to do business, the way to show up in your life. That is going to create a ripple effect, and the people following you are going to take that as permission to do the same, which is huge, right? And this is what's going to fuel your business forward. Showing up that way, empowered from a place of truth, grounded in your core values, like knowing who you are and why you're doing what you're doing and allowing that to be the basis of everything is going to fuel your business forward, right? Because we can be following every rule, whatever the rules we think they are, been told, whatever, downloading every free training, signing up for every class, going to every webinar, whatever. But if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe that you have what it takes, that your success is inevitable, then nothing's ever going to work. Okay? So this is the foundational things. These are the things we focus on inside the Magnetic Bitch Bootcamp. All right? Mindset, aligned strategy, authentic branding, business organization. We focus on the human first and the strategy second. Because when we focus on the human first, we tap into so much juicy shit, and we're able to do it in a way that feels good for each of us individually. Okay, like business and strategy, it's not a one size fits all. So it comes second. It comes after we really deepen into ourselves and figure out who we are, who we want to be in this business, who we want to show up as in this business, in this world, right? So past bitches have felt very clear, less stressed, and reinvigorated after completing the 30-day bootcamp. We start in July. And if you're struggling with your self-talk, your inner dialogue, overworking, overwhelm, maybe even fear of failing, this is a big one I see a lot, setting boundaries, or even just spinning your wheels on social media, then you could definitely benefit from the Magnetic Bitch Bootcamp. Okay, so keep your eyes on your inbox because the details are coming to you very, very soon. And if you can't wait and you really want to know more, just shoot me a message, a DM or an email, and I will get back to you. Okay. Thank you for rocking with me this week. I love you all so much. And I would love to know your biggest takeaway from the last 3 days. I guess technically 4. So send me a message or reply to this email, the email that was sent to you that had this link, the video link, because I really want to know. I'd love to know like what really resonated for you, what maybe bubbled up to the surface, what was your favorite thing to hear about or think about, and yeah, thank you so much, and I hope to see you again really, really soon. Okay.